Welcome, everyone, to our Kepler College open house. Thank you for joining us today. I'm going to go through just a little presentation about all that Kepler College has to offer. I think the number one question that people have, because there are many choices out there for where you can get an astrological education, is why would you choose Kepler College over one of the other schools? And of course, there are many great schools out there. One of the things that I think that Kepler College does really well is that we have small class size. So when you come into Kepler College, you're in real time. It's all Zoom meetings, but you're in real time with your instructor. You can ask questions live and get clarification on everything that's going on. And we typically don't have any more than 30 students in a classroom. Some instructors will want even less people than that in their classes, but we don't usually see more than 30. And so it's a little bit more of a more intimate environment as opposed to being in some classes where there are like hundreds of people and you're not getting individual attention. You also have, for your assignments, you have, if you're working towards your diploma or a certificate and you're handing in assignments, you're getting direct feedback on those assignments. So your instructors are looking at your work and working with you as you go through your course to get you on a course correction if you're going off astray a little bit. One of the other things that I think is pretty special to Kepler College is that we have multiple instructors, and we have, I think, at least over 50 instructors, maybe getting close to 60 instructors. And it's very intentional that within each certificate, we would have different instructors giving you information because we want you to be able to look at different perspectives as you're going through. So we're not stuck on, this is the right idea, this is the only way that you can get to the end. Of course, all astrologers will agree on most of the fundamental ideas, but then we all have our own perspectives. And multiple instructors with different backgrounds will introduce you to a bunch of different ideas that ultimately will help you to develop your own critical thinking skills and develop your own ideas that you might have about astrology. On top of the astrology education that we offer, we also have a professional development certificate. So if you're even at this point a professional astrologer, we can help you to develop your own practice and get started as a practicing astrologer. All of our classes are recorded, and as a registered student, you have access to those classes for up to 3 years. This is just an image to give you some idea of the number of faculty that we have on board right now. So you can see, if for those of you that are familiar with some of these faces, that there's a pretty broad swath, people from different countries. That gets a little more challenging because of time zones, of course. So it is largely North American centered, but certainly we try to connect to people all over the world to bring in their wisdom. And that's true for our students as well. You can come in from all over the world as long as the time zone works for you. The first certificate that we offer is our fundamental certificate. Tamara, do you want to talk about this fundamental certificate as the coordinator of that particular one?
Sure. Okay, well, welcome everyone. Good to see you here. Now, the fundamental certificate, I think is, well, it's fundamental to everything, really. It takes you right from the beginning of understanding how we work with the planets on the very foundational energy, the essential nature, how we build that into the script and how the planet is accessing its essential nature, moving on to more complex ideas in 102 and 103. And then when you get to 104, it is a practicum, and it's a real practicum. You don't learn any new information in 104, but what you're doing is using the information and all those, there's so much to learn in 101, 102, 103 that you get to 104, and you need that practical, hands-on work with all of those techniques so that you can use them as you move forward into all the other classes that we have. Even some of the more obscure certificates like astromapping really depends on this fundamental certificate because it gives you the ability to delineate the chart, the natal chart itself. And without that, you're going to struggle with learning other techniques. So this is a really it's a fantastic certificate. The teachers are incredible. You'll learn everything from, like I said, the very beginning to really very complex ideas and how to apply them to the natal chart.
Yeah, thank you, Tamara. And of course, we see here that our fundamental certificate, these classes are all 10 weeks. Most of our classes are 5 weeks, but the fundamentals are all 10-week courses, totaling 40 weeks of study in order to earn that certificate. And these 40 weeks are also required if you are working towards the diploma.
In the predictive certificate, the first class that you should take would be transits. The other classes in that site assume that you know transit. So if you're starting the certificate, start with transits. And we have it scheduled so that the next required class is the progressions and solar directions. And so those teachers have agreed to transits the first 5 weeks, and that allows you another 5 weeks to get that done in the same term to go to progressions. So now you can see on the screen, required, solar returns is required. And the practicum at the very end is required. But you see that you have a choice in between here, RP 301 or RP 302, each a 5-week class. But rectification is dealing with unknown birth time or a not specific birth time. And indeed, without birth time, we don't have angles, we don't have houses. So the rest of the things that you see below, Donna, do you want to take over? These are the rest of the available classes in the predictive.
Yeah. So there are many classes that you can take that are overlapping with the diploma as electives. So certainly when you're working on the prediction certificate, you have to take these 3 required courses: transits, progressions, solar returns. You have to take one of these practicums that are in blue, and then you can choose from any 2 of these ones that are in the gray boxes as electives, not electives, but yeah, kind of to round out your certificate. In total, you need to take 30 weeks to get your certificate. And there's an extended certificate that you can take where you would take an additional 10 weeks of electives if you wanted to keep rounding out your studies. And these 30 weeks of prediction are also required for the diploma. AstroMapping, this is another certificate that Tamara is in charge of. So Tamara, I'll take this back to you to talk about this particular certificate.
Sure. This is, of course, one of my passions, astromapping. And I actually teach, right now I'm teaching the core class with Karen. And I think we're having a lot of fun, aren't we, Karen? It's been pretty good. So really, this is a technique. So you do need to have solid natal mapping or natal chart skills before you come into this certificate. Or you could, do foundational classes and mapping if you wanted to still do both of them at the same time. You certainly could do that. And again, we take it right from a beginner level. What is a map? How do we map those planets across the world? All the way to more intricate techniques where we're really breaking down this map and gleaning so much information from it. Mapping really, it takes astrology for me to another level. It really shows us how to embody our natal chart, like walking around in the world, living in the world. How do we do that? And astromapping for me really, really speaks to that.
We have a question in the Q&A that is, what is the advantage of the diploma? Which is a great question. There's a few answers to that question. Certainly at the moment, astrology is not a regulated field, so anybody can call themselves an astrologer after having just read a book, which is unfortunate for our practice. But if you work towards your diploma, once you finish your diploma, I think it's a fairly comprehensive study that typically will take you, a few years to complete if you're going at a regular pace of taking one class per term or two classes per term. And you can feel confident in the end that you have a solid education in astrology. Astrology is a never-ending study, and so you wouldn't want to end there. That's not the end of it. That's just the beginning of it. But it certainly is a good start to a practice in astrology. Karen, do you want to talk more about that? I'm sure you have some thoughts on that question.
Well, I can tell you from giving the certification exam for Continuum that most of the people who do not pass the exam do so because their basic natal skills are not good. It's definitely true that you need solid natal skills for the natal chart, the relocated chart. Solar returns come in handy too. All of those are really necessary if you're going to understand the basic astrocartography.
Yeah.
But Tamara, you get into a different area entirely when you talk about the AstroMapping technique that you're so fond of.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's the local space actually is my favorite place to work with, because it is us embodying our chart and mapping it out in our actual, like our living room, our office, and learning about the energy there. And the diploma itself, it's not just that that as when you graduate and get your diploma and you're like, yay, I can go out there and do natal charts. It's that other people know that you have this incredible study behind you, that you are you are a proficient a proficient astrologer in general, because if you go through the diploma, you not only have foundationals, you have movement, the prediction track, and then you specialize in areas that you really have interest in. You get history, you know about where you come from, where these techniques originated. Inga loves, that's Inga's passion, is the history. And also other techniques. We've got the heritage and the astrology of healing. These are different areas that you can specialize in. So when you go out in the world and put that shingle out and say, I'm an astrologer, you're getting your all of your credentials in line, you're getting your computers in line, you're able to start to market yourself. The public can be confident that you are a proficient astrologer. And I think that's really super important. And I think it's becoming more and more known that people want someone who is really proficient at astrology and know that they've taken all of those courses that they need to take to be that way. So I think that's what our diploma really does for us.
I think also we're one of the few places that has a required course in astronomy and in creating charts.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, the other thing, back to this question of the advantage of the diploma, there are other places that offer, there's organizations, astrology organizations that will offer you a recognition or a certificate, to say that you're an astrologer, a practiced and polished astrologer. And if you go through the KeplerCollege diploma, the one of them, NCGR, the National Council for Geocosmic Research, will give you some parallel education. You have to actually write like the level 4 part in order to earn that certificate. But they certainly recognize the caliber of KeplerCollege's education. And ESAR, the International Society for Astrological Research, you have to challenge their exam, but you're certainly prepared to do so once you finish your KeplerCollege education. So, those are the advantages. I mean, just getting a solid education is the goal, right? We don't want to send people out into the world that are not well educated. And so the diploma is going to ensure, for your own peace of mind, that you have a well-rounded education. And the other thing that I'm personally experiencing, I don't know if the rest of you could say this, but I find that my clients themselves are actually looking for people who have a good education. And perhaps I draw those people to me just because of, I have that on my website. They know that I have a good education, but many of them that are coming for the first time will tell me that that is why they chose me. They knew that I was the real thing. And so for those reasons alone, an education is an important thing to have, from a well-recognized institution.
Another thing that's really different about Kepler, partly because of the multiple instructors at each level, but also partly because we don't have the Kepler way to read a chart. If you go to a single teacher out in the field, they're going to teach you their method. They're not going to expose you to different methods. We at Kepler are interested in you learning your method, and your method is going to vary depending on which of the techniques speak to you, which ones you can apply and use and understand.
Exactly.
So I think that's a major difference.
Yeah. I see a couple of other questions here that I am going to address, but I think I'll save them for farther down in the presentation if you'll have some patience with me. You can see here that we've talked about a few other certificates that we offer, and the counseling and relationship one, I don't know, Karen or Inga, do you want to talk about that one specifically?
Well, we do offer, a lot of discussion and a lot of basic kind of training on different ways of entering a counseling relationship with a client, kind of intro to counseling, introduction to counseling methods, and then some practical advice on counseling with clients, and also counseling within relationships, different ways of approaching relationships with clients. It's a big field. There's many ways to approach it. So, yeah.
Great. The professional development certificate is one that I mentioned a bit earlier on. This is the one where if you already have your education and now you want to focus on writing or get your feet wet in terms of being a public speaker, or you want to develop a YouTube channel, you want help with your marketing, all of those kinds of things are worked on in the professional development certificate. And I'll add for this certificate and really any of our courses, if you only want to take a couple of courses, you can do that. You don't have to complete the certificate. You can just take ones that interest you. And you can, in fact, audit any of the classes. So if you're not interested in handing in homework, but you want to, if you want to sit in and learn the material without submitting homework, you can do that. There's no discount for doing that, but you can do that. So those are options for you. Alternative traditions is the certificate where if you want to just pull a little bit from a bunch of different certificates or different classes and pull in a bunch of alternative information, that's a certificate you can work on. And heritage, astrological heritage, that's another one that Inga teaches a lot of classes in. Do you want to talk about that a little?
And Carol teaches a lot of the literature parts of that, and it's about it's kind of like relearning history with the astrology back in it, which none of us learned in school. So it kind of gives you a different perspective of really learning history all over again, but with all the fun parts back in. And you really learn how much you missed.
Yeah. And how much history or astrology was a part of what was going on.
It kind of is the backbone of the ancient sciences. Yeah.
It's fun to learn that stuff too, because then when people start to rag on you saying, "Oh, you're an astrologer" and stuff, and you can go, "Yeah, all those people you admire in science, guess what?
Yeah.
So were they."
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
Enid and Lori, I didn't see you step in, so my apologies. Lori, do you want to say anything more about the professional development certificate since you're the head of that?
Sure. The professional development certificate has many of the new master classes that we have just started offering. And the idea is to have some shorter classes or shorter courses for you for learning, because once we become a professional astrologer, we have to take on a whole new set of skills. It's no longer about the technique. It's about how you are interacting with clients or how you're getting speaking engagements, as Donna mentioned, and the business side. So being a business owner has a lot of things that we need to know: the marketing, the budgeting, social media, and how do we get our message out there? And that's what this professional development certificate is all about, is trying to help you get together the tools and resources that you need to be successful in your business. If you want to be a professional astrologer, you want to earn your living from astrology and not have a second job, then you're going to need these skills. It's very important. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Lori. I see somebody has their hand up, and I should have said at the beginning that if you have a question, the best place to do it at the moment is in the Q&A box. So please type any questions in there, and then at the end we'll unmute you all, and you can all jump in with your live questions. I want to talk a little bit about the Astrology of Healing certificate, and this one is really, there's a lot of medical astrology that's going on here. So there's a really great staff. This is one of our newer certificates that there's a really great group of people that are being gathered together, again, from all over the world, really, that are involved in that certificate. We've got a few new certificates that we're pretty excited about. One of them is Hellenistic, and one of them is medieval. The Hellenistic one, we actually started that one starting with a class on zodiacal releasing, just to kind of gauge the interest. It was hugely popular, and so now we've launched out, and we've got some new classes starting as early as this spring. So if Hellenistic astrology interests you, look for those classes coming out. We're super excited. And then we're also, just to balance things out and making sure that we're getting some of these, separating out some of these ideas, we are introducing a medieval certificate that I think, Tamara, is it right that the first class will start in the fall or the summer?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no, the summer. You're right. The summer. Mm-hmm.
So look for those, and ultimately some of these classes, the people that are leading these certificates are going to be working well together to make sure that all of their ideas are lining up. And so we're pretty excited about those. Now, and not to neglect the work of our more modern astrologers, we are also working on a new Uranian astrology certificate and an evolutionary astrology certificate. There's other things that we're working on behind the scene, but this is what's in the work for the moment. We're super excited about these new programs. Now, to go back to our diploma, we talked about the need for this fundamental certificate, 40 weeks of study, then the prediction certificate, that is an additional 30 weeks of study. Then you also have to be required to take chart calculation, that's 10 weeks. Enid, do you want to talk about that chart calculation class? You're muted.
There we go. Helps to unmute. Yes, the chart calculation is a chance. Well, it's not just from old-time astrologers saying we had to calculate our charts by hand, so do you. What it really is a chance to get into the chart from the inside. and understanding what's going on, why it's going on, which does have a direct relationship to interpretation. Because there are certain choices that if you buy software that you may want to make, and knowing why you're making one choice over another in the defaults is kind of important because that shifts what you're going to see in your chart. So the chart calculation, you don't have to know anything fancy about math. We don't try do the original trig. We just do basically multiplication, adding and subtracting. But you get that within the context of the types of charts that are made, both natal progressions like that, as well as seeing the chart itself with your own work unfolding under your hands is really quite wonderful.
Yeah, that's for sure. I think that taking chart calculation, which is, by the way, a class that you can take without any comprehension of astrology. So if you're just starting off, that's a class that you can take. And it really gives you a good idea of planetary movement that helps you to understand astrology in a way that becomes important farther on, but it's hard to imagine how that's important until you get there. So it's actually a pretty good starting place. You need 10 weeks of astrological history, and this is broken down into a number of 5-week classes, so you don't have to commit to 10 weeks all at once, and you can choose from, and Inga's already told you about how important history is, so that is a requirement for the diploma. Astronomy for astrologers is another class that's required, again, to help you understand what's going on. You know, as astrologers, sometimes it's really easy for us to get our heads in books and on computers, and we never look up. And of course, that's where astrology all started. Astrology started with people looking up and observing what was going on in the sky and how it relates to us down on Earth. And so this is a really specific class to help you understand really what's going on in the sky. You need 10 weeks of consulting or counseling classes, and Karen has talked about that. Karen and Inga talked about that already, just to help you get grounded and feel confident in your abilities to work with people. And then you can take 20 weeks of electives. So you can choose from anything. I mean, this is anything. You can pick one from here and one from there, or you could work towards, you know, a whole other certificate if you wanted to. And then you are asked to do a final demonstration of learning before you get your diploma. And this could be a written piece, or it could be a presentation that you do. But Carol is our director of education, and she works with every student closely to help them with their final project and how they're going to present it, assign them an advisor if they need, and go through with them quite closely. Carol, do you want to talk any more about that?
Well, it's we have a course site now, and it's a self-paced. So some people might take one term to finish their project. Others might take a whole year. There's no deadline. It's up to the student.
Yeah. So this is 130 weeks in total. And when we say weeks, we're talking about, even when we're talking about 10 weeks of classes or 5 weeks of classes, each of our classes are 2 hours long. So 130 weeks of classes is 260 hours of study. On top of the actual classes, or I should say 260 hours of class time. On top of your class time, you are expected, or we anticipate, depending on your reading speed and how immersed you already are with astrology, that you might spend between 8 to 10 hours a week of reading and assignments and practicing for any class that you take. So if you're thinking about working towards the certificate or a diploma, you will want to bear that in mind, that it does take a little bit of dedication, unless you're just wanting to sit in on the classes and get general knowledge. But if you really want to apply yourself and get the piece of paper, then you can expect to have to put some work into it. We also have an advanced diploma, And this is 190 weeks in total. So it's an additional 60 weeks that you're asked to take. There are some specific courses that you need to take in order to get this advanced diploma. Horary astrology, an extra 5 weeks in essential dignities. Mundane astrology, we ask you to take one class in professional development. And then if you remember from the prediction certificate, you got to choose your practicum, whether you took rectification or the natal practicum. For the advanced diploma, you have to take the one you didn't take. So you end up taking both of those. And then we would ask for an additional 5 weeks of research. And then on top of that, we would ask that you have an additional 30 weeks of concentrated study. So you would ultimately end up with one of these certificates, and we'll add the new certificates as they are complete. So this could be in Hellenistic astrology or medieval astrology, or eventually the evolutionary astrology or Uranian astrology. So we just want you to be able to say that you have a focused study. And so that is part of the advanced diploma. And then again, another final demonstration of learning that we would ask. We do have audit courses. I mentioned those earlier. You can take audit courses. You can just sign in and take any of the courses that are live. Jeannie, do you want to talk about, or is Jeannie still here? Yeah, Jeannie, do you want to talk about the other audit courses and self-study?
Sure. We have a number of self-study courses that are pre-recorded courses and are led by an instructor. So you have a communication with the instructor. The courses are worth 5 or 10 credits, depending on the type of course. For example, we do have Astronomy for Astrologers, which is a self-study. Inga has one of her astrological heritage courses, which is a 10-week self-study. So you can either take it in person or you can study on your own. All the self-study courses, you have a time frame of 4 months from the time that you purchase it to completion to get the credits for it. The audit courses are something a little bit different. They are a class that is pre-recorded, and you are not taking it for an academic credit. There is a discount on this course. You're taking this course as if you are purchasing as an electronic resource that you put into your resource kit. So we do have fundamentals 1, 2, and I believe fundamentals 3 as audit courses. You can study those. If you feel that you have learned everything and you want to get a credit for it, there's also a challenge test that you can do later on for fundamentals 1, 2, or 3 to get the 10 credits towards a certificate or diploma.
Thank you, Jeannie. We've got all of our classes for the spring term up in the classroom, in the store. So please have a look there if you are looking at starting off your journey, or, regardless of where you are in your path. You can, even if you're an intermediate or an advanced astrologer, I'm sure there's something for you here. You can see we've got 2 sessions of fundamentals, and that is because one of them is on the weekend and one of them is on a weeknight. We have got the fundamentals 2 and 3 and 4 offered. These classes are offered 3 times a year in the fall, winter, and spring terms, not in the summer terms. Summer, I'm speaking Northern Hemisphere. So you can find these courses all happening quite regularly. Our other classes are not offered every term, but we have this term offering transits, the rectification practicum that Carol was talking about. You don't want to take any of these courses that are considered intermediate or advanced unless you have a solid fundamentals background. You can see the introduction to counseling that Inga and Karen were speaking about earlier, working with parents and children, always a popular course. A class on asteroid goddesses and Chiron, and illuminating relationship, a synastry class. So some great classes coming up there. The prediction practicum, again, the practicums, are really more for people who are working on their certificate completion. Class on working with the moon, which is always an interesting class, regardless of whether you're working on your certificate or not. Progressions in solar arcs, we wouldn't want you to take this one unless you had a solid foundation and had probably taken transits as well, as that's a part of it.
I mean, you definitely do want to know some of it, because 5 weeks is awfully short to learn progressions. And Joseph and I, we'll do our best to make sure that you get through, but having the knowledge really helps, especially of transits.
And any of the history courses can be taken in any order. It doesn't matter. But yeah, a lot of the astrology courses, you really need the background to be able to know what you're doing.
Yeah. And if you have any questions, I mean, you can see here that this Inga's history class is marked as beginner. So if it's beginner class, you don't need to have any other kind of background. But intermediate or advanced you do. So you can see here that there's another house division class. That's an intermediate class. And the fundamentals of life coaching, another very popular class that we offer. And none of these classes are offered every term. So if you see something that interests you, know that you want to take it while you see it. And then AstroMapping Certificate, we've got a couple of classes being offered this term, Astronomy of Astromapping and Astromapping for Beginners. So that's a good launching pad for you. And then in the Astrology of Healing, Medical Astrology, History and Foundation. So you can see, what Inga's talking about, even in some of our other certificates, we're illuminating the importance of history in what you're studying. And of course, Astrology and Nutrition, another topic that is quite popular. We've got a few master classes that Lori was talking about. Do you want to talk about these, Lori?
Sure. These classes are to help you in the counseling room. So if you do see clients already, this is going to help you specifically for what it's about. So the master class on death charts is not going to teach you how to prepare the charts. It's not going to teach you any technique. It's going to talk to you about when somebody comes into the counseling room and how to work with them on that. Same for astromapping. If you already practice astromapping and you want help in doing astromapping in your business. And then lastly, storytelling. In case you haven't heard, storytelling is one of the most important pieces of your communication in terms of telling people about what you do, bringing a story into that, which is really more miniature stories, because we're not talking about novels, writing books. We're just talking about weaving stories into your messaging, because that's what grabs people's attention. So I'm really excited for that one, really for all of them. But I particularly am interested in storytelling because as a marketer, I know how important it is.
Wow. Fantastic. Thanks, Lori. And we've got some courses starting out in our Hellenistic certificate as well. And this is, even though we have already offered at one point the zodiacal releasing class, that wasn't really a beginner class. That was just kind of where we started our interest in Hellenistic astrology. So you can see here that there is a mix of beginner and intermediate classes being offered. And some of these are really natal courses. So this beginner course, an introduction to natal Hellenistic astrology. Even if you are an experienced astrology, if you're interested in Hellenistic astrology, you'd want to start here, the Thema Mundi, and explore it through this lens. And then the other beginner classes, the houses, telling the houses, building narrative through house delineation. It's quite different from the other house class that we're offering, which is more of an intermediate class. This one is specific to Hellenistic astrology, and but I think would be probably a good course even if you're not working on this particular certificate, if you just want to understand houses better. And then the Hellenistic considerations of the moon and the circumambulations through the bounds are more intermediate classes. And by intermediate, I mean that you already have some understanding of Hellenistic astrology. So I don't think you'd want to necessarily jump into these without some other background in Hellenistic astrology. Now, for our astrology day this year, we are going to be focusing on Hellenistic astrology and, really bridging the gap between then and now, because I think that this is a question that a lot of people struggle with when they think about the older practices of astrology. And so because we're launching our Hellenistic astrology certificate around this same time, that all of the people who are going to be teaching in that certificate will be panelists on Astrology Day. And so that, I think that'll be a great event. How many hours does this go on for, Lori?
It's going to be almost 5, well, I'm going to say 5 hours with Q&A, and
Yeah.
it's free. This is a free event. So sign up, even if you can't be there the whole time, because then you'll get an email with the replay.
Yeah. And this will be on our YouTube channel eventually, correct?
Yes, it will. Mhm.
Yeah. So you can look for that. 5 hours is a big commitment, so we understand if you don't think that you can go for the whole day, but certainly we look forward to seeing you there for even a short period of time. We have got some free courses. One of them is Babylonian mathematics. Another, for those of you who don't have any understanding of even the basics, such as the glyphs and the planetary order. Thank you, Inga. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Inga has to go off to teach a class. That free course, by all means, go through there. There's some quizzes that will help you to memorize the order of the planets and what the glyphs look like, and some really fundamental interpretations. So that's a great place to start if you're starting at ground is 0. And you know what? Take it anyway. It's free, just to make sure. And then if you're not sure where you're at, we've got a series of quizzes that you can take. So Jeannie had talked about the possibility for you to challenge a level in the fundamentals. So if you are coming in a little bit more advanced, go ahead, take the quiz. It's free. And it will give you some idea of where there are some gaps in your knowledge, if there are any. So if you take the quiz and you reach, a fairly high level and you think, you know what, I think I can challenge the exam for 101, 102, even 103, you are free to do that. So you can go to the store, first of all, take the quiz. Then if you do well, you can go to the store and purchase a challenge exam, and you can skip through those first 3 classes if you are working towards your diploma. So we encourage you to do that. We don't want anyone coming in too low and being bored, but we do want to make sure that there aren't any gaps in your knowledge. So that is a great place to find out where you're at. And of course, when I think about these quizzes are specific to the courses at Kepler College. So there might be some things in there that other people don't consider fundamentals, but what we teach in our fundamentals. We've got a couple of free webinars coming up. So, the symbolism behind house systems is coming up April 5th. And Eris with Daniel Fiverson, the sacred feminine force of evolution. Our webinars are always free, and they're always recorded, and you can watch them on our YouTube channel if you're not able to make it live. So look for that. Our YouTube channel is filled not just with our webinar recordings that are there, but there are a whole bunch of things that go on behind the scenes, monthly forecasts, leaders in astrology. There's a mystery chart series. There's a Let's Talk Astrology. Let's talk astrology business. Let's talk astromapping. I feel like the ideas just keep coming and coming and coming for our YouTube channel. So by all means, go there and find out what is going on. KeplerCollege also sponsors a Toastmaster group. And so if wanting to improve your public speaking skills and eventually getting on the astrology speaking circuit is of interest to you, you are welcome to attend as a guest. There's an email here where you can send a request to get the link for the Toastmasters meeting. This is, like I say, KeplerCollege sponsors it, but it's unrelated really to KeplerCollege. It's just something that we promote because our whole goal is to make better astrologers and better speakers at conferences. We want to see better astrology out there in the world. And a part of that is being able to present yourself in a professional manner. There's also a Uranian astrology group that meets monthly. And there's a small fee that you can find in the store for joining that group. That's a very private group. These recordings don't go on our YouTube channel or anywhere else. It's really contained into that group, but it's a pretty reasonable fee to join. And if Uranian astrology interests you, by all means, look for that in our store. Lori, do you want to talk about the book club?
Yes, book club is evolving, actually. We just moved our interviews. So we interview authors of books, and then we have a study component that goes with that. And the book club lives in a private Facebook group. So that's where you join. That's where you learn about the book that we're studying every month. Then, in addition to that, we invite the author to do a live Q&A event with us. And in the past, this has been inside of the Facebook group. And last month, we started our YouTube live stream so that it was easier for everyone to join. But you would get a chance to ask the author a question and study with some of your peers. So if you're looking for a smaller group where you can study with other astrologers and get a chance to meet the author and ask a question, book club is for you. And you can find us on the KeplerCollege Facebook page, and then you ask to join the group. We're going to let you in as long as you answer the questions, because that's a requirement to get into the group. So please join us.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been fun. We also have a spirit store. I always used to joke that if I was to ever get a tattoo, it would be the table of essential dignities. But, I worried that as I got older, it might be hard to read. So I was so happy that we started producing some KeplerCollege. We can get, you can get all kinds of products that have our logo on, but I'm pretty hot about the essential dignities products. I have it as a phone case, and I'm telling you, I look at it all the time. So you can choose a couple of different versions of the essential dignities table, but there's also some other fun, just Kepler branded material in there. But I'm really pushing the dignities stuff because we don't see that out there. Now I'm going to get to some of your questions that have been waiting in the Q&A. And one of the questions was, who issues the accreditations for astrology colleges? And I have to say that because astrology is not a registered or I've lost the word I'm looking for. Help me out here.
Accredited?
Regulated.
Regulated. Not a regulated field. That really, there isn't a body that issues accreditations for astrology colleges. So there isn't anybody. We're self-governing, as it were. And so when we think about that idea, KeplerCollege is not an accredited college. You're not going to be able to get a student loan to come here. You're not going to get a bachelor's degree. We're only offering diplomas. And the diploma will tell you, and the rest of the world, that your education is solid because KeplerCollege has a good reputation around the world.
There are no schools or teachers accredited in the United States
to teach us, to teach astrology. Yeah, that's right. Accredited by the cosmos, that's it.
But there is a group of astrologers, because a lot of us want to see us actually come together to determine what is what kind of competencies, what do we want people to know at which different levels? What are the things that are really important? And so that conversation is getting started. But it's probably got a ways to go. Our goal, I think, ultimately is being able to accredit our own colleges, just like other professions have done. But it does take a lot of work and organization and coming together. So the beginning steps have been taken. And some of people here at Kepler are part of that beginning steps.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it could change. It could change sooner than we imagine. Our next question is, if you're not interested in giving one-on-one readings, but would like to dedicate your practice to research of the field, does the diploma program help with this aspiration too? And I'm going to say absolutely, because it's pretty hard to do research if you don't understand astrology. So a big part of that is going to be certainly working on your foundations. Do you need to work on professional development? Do you need to work on your public speaking? Well, maybe even then still, because you're going to do research, but what are you going to do the research for? If it's just for yourself, then it doesn't matter. But if you want to present at conferences, and there are research conferences, or you want to write for, some of the magazines that are out there, then you need to have a pretty solid background, or you're going to get picked apart pretty quickly. So absolutely, the diploma program is going to help with that. And even in terms of, if those are your goals, if you want to write for a magazine or present at a conference, having your KeplerCollege education on your resume is going to be helpful in itself. I like this comment. Thank you for the exploration regarding certification, diploma, and education. I've been a student of astrology studying for around 30 years on and off. I find there are a lot of astrologers out there who provide advice, counseling, and readings with little knowledge or experience. The general public is not well knowledgeable. I think my greatest concern is the continued reputation of astrology. And I will say, in my opinion, astrology is one of the oldest and most powerful knowledge/teachings. Thank you for that comment. Yeah, I think we all agree with that. All of us in this room would agree with that. And really, astrology is really increasing in popularity. And so we are finding so many people, like you say, astrologers, we'll leave that in quotes, who don't have the education that they don't know what they don't know. And that's one of the problems with astrology in the first place, that you don't know what you don't know until you really start stepping into it.
And it would be nice, like last night, I watched John Oliver on the eclipse, and he had a series of little vignettes, basically, of images from astrologers talking about the eclipse on YouTube. And obviously, for purposes of comedy, they chose the worst ones, but it just was cringeworthy as an astrologer to watch it.
Yeah.
And know that that's the level that people think astrology is all about, rather than its real underpinnings.
Okay, our next question. If I do the fundamental certificate, is it valid for me to do the challenge test to gain the certificate, or do I still need to take the fundamentals practicum? Yeah, you can take levels 1, 2, and 3. You can challenge those exams, but you do have to take the practicum. We have to actually witness you in action in order for us to say that you have gained that certification.
You skipped one, Donna.
Should I?
Additional? Yes.
Oh, should the additional programs like the personal development one only be taken after completing all fundamentals 1 to 4? It depends. I mean, it depends on the class. And you're talking about professional development, I think. And so there are some classes like YouTube channel that you could take without completing fundamentals, and I'm sure there are others. Lori, do you want to speak to that question?
I think the real question you might want to ask is, why am I taking this class? Am I ready to see clients yet? And will this class help me in my business? Because if you take a class and you're far away from actually being able to use what you're learning, it would be better to wait and take it whenever you're actually ready to use the material. So we don't know what your level is in terms of if you're coming to Kepler to supplement an education and you already know a lot about astrology, then you may be able to use one of these classes right away. But if you're really new to astrology and you're a beginner, then you probably are going to want to wait until you're ready. I guess what I'm saying is, yes, you could take the YouTube class because there would not be anything in that class that would be confusing to you. But then my question would be, why would you want to start a YouTube channel on astrology if you're not sure how to do astrology? Now, maybe you're studying astrology and you want to start a YouTube channel on something that you're educated in, and that could be a good reason to take the class. So the short answer is it depends. And you really want to think about what you're going to do with that material.
Yeah, for sure. We've got some other suggestions here. I think if you have suggestions for our YouTube channel, please send those suggestions to our Director of Marketing. Lori, do you want an address to send to them?
You can email me, Lori@KeplerCollege.org. I think that for some reason I can't post in the chat to everyone. Maybe Jeannie, you can pop my email in the chat box.
Oh, it's because I haven't made you a co-host. There you go.
Thank
Are
you.
there scholarship opportunities? Yes, there are. And you can find you have to submit an application, but we do offer scholarships and you are welcome to submit an application. If somebody can pop that address or the link in the chat, I think that would be great too. How long does it take to complete the free beginner course? It's not long. It's quick. I mean, and you can take it over and over again. So if you want to just step into it, you can just step into it and try it out and see where it gets you. Yeah. Of course, it's going to depend on where you're at. You know, if you already know the answers, it won't take you long at all. Okay, there are no other open questions. Does anybody have any other questions?
There's a question in chat that says, it is about, what is the dignity table? Show or explain.
Oh, okay. Well, that's something that the table of essential dignities is something that becomes important to you as you move along in your practice, because it's a tool for helping you determine planetary condition. So I don't think we're going to teach that here. I don't know. Do we have any essential dignity videos on the YouTube channel, Lori, that you can think of that might be an introduction to it?
I'm trying to remember if that's what Michael Bryan. We might. I'll have to check that out. And if we don't, we'll make one.
Yeah.
How about that?
Actually, Lori, you're correct. Michael Bryan did an introductory video to his Essential Dignities course, and he's a very good speaker. So if you look Michael Bryan up on our YouTube channel, you'll get a kind of a short intro to essential dignities and abilities.
And I see that somebody in the chat asked, who are all these people? Well, these people are all of our faculty. And this number continues to grow, but these are the people that have all in the past year either taught with us or who are going to be teaching with us in the next few months. So if you see somebody that you're interested in, if people want to find the list of the faculty, I think somebody had asked about that, and see what they're teaching, that is also available on our website, right? Oh, no, we don't have a faculty list. But if you go to the store and you see somebody that you want to take a class with, you can click on their, if they're teaching a current class, you can click on their bio link and it'll take you to the information about them. But yeah, these are all the people that we have coming up. So you can see, and unlike as we talked about before, schools where It's just one teacher teaching you their way to do astrology. And not to take anything away from what they're doing, because there really are some amazing teachers out there. But we have just taken a completely different model, a completely different approach. We want our students to be exposed to multiple schools of thought.
Just
There's
to
a couple
note,
of questions.
just to
yeah.
note, the history class is on this channel. And it's supposed to be starting now.
I don't think so, Karen.
I just got a notice.
No, I think it's on a different one.
Okay.
So we're okay.
Okay.
Another question here. Should I do all fundamentals before the additional programs? I'm going for my diploma and starting fundamentals 1 this spring. Certainly we can help you with that, but the best path is to take the fundamentals before you move on to other studies. But you're going to be taking fundamentals in the spring. The fundamentals 2 isn't offered in the summer, but there are other classes that are offered in the summer that will work towards your diploma if that's your goal. So chart calculation is offered in the summer. That's a great time to take that. And there are other beginner classes that you can take. So you just have to look in the classroom for what's beginner. So you can take, if you're just starting, then just look for the beginner classes. But yeah, you don't have to follow the direct path. I would encourage you, though, to complete the fundamentals kind of instead of bouncing around all over the place, because they do feed into each other. But there are, like I said, other classes, beginner classes that you can take if you don't want to take the summer off. At the moment, there's another question here about there are other courses in development, exploring links between other disciplines. Not at the moment. At the moment, there are not. That might be something that we eventually do, but at the moment, we're focusing on astrology. And there's so many different branches of astrology that I think until we've tapped out all of those, we'll stay in our lane. We're going to work on what we do best. Are there any other questions? Well, if not, I thank you for all of your attention. And, if something comes to you later on and you want to send a question, you can just send an email to info@KeplerCollege. And I've forgotten our
hello@KeplerCollege.org.
Okay, there you go, .org.
Yeah.
I lost myself for a minute. And we will certainly attempt to answer your questions. And yeah, if you want to pursue or listen to this again or pursue our YouTube channel further, please go there. I think this will show up on our YouTube channel, this particular recording. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you in some of our classes. Thank you.